Welcome to the Culture Copia podcast, where we discuss all things pop culture. From the movies and games you loved as a kid to new releases and everything in between, the tech that keeps moving us forward, and just about anything else that pops in our heads. Ready, Robert?
I'm ready.
Game on.
Welcome to Culture Copia Podcast. Okay, so welcome to our May the 4th be with you episode. Bonus episode, yeah?
Yeah, fucking nerds.
First one. Yeah, we're going to nerd out on this one. Not going to be the regular format. We're just going to sit here and we're going to talk about all things Star Wars, man.
Oh, we're talking about Star Wars.
Yeah,
That's right.
May the 4th. Yeah. I'm currently in the middle of creating a May the 4th Facebook post for work.
Hell yeah.
I'm taking AI. I'm taking the managers and running them through AI and turning them into Luke and Princess Leia and Han Solo.
Wow, that's perfect.
Just doing the management. Yeah. So it's been kind of fun. But
is that a promotional thing, or is that just for?
It's just for May the 4th. It's it's like a brand awareness thing. It's just you're trying. It's not necessarily about it's branding, right?
Okay,
it's like we're nerds too. We like the Star Wars, kind of thing. So it is kind of like a brand awareness, but it's like,
well, and it's such a, and this is why we're doing this episode, and we touched on this before because we did cover A New Hope, but it's such a recognizable franchise,
right?
And so it's one of those things. Like even if you're not into it, even if you've never even seen a Star Wars movie, I think Amy has seen maybe one, like all the way through.
Really?
But if I showed her pictures of the characters,
she could tell you.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing.
Yeah.
Unless you start getting obscure,
right?
It's where it's like, shit, I don't even fucking know.
Like there was in the Mandalorian, there was like this bad guy in the Boba Fett season, and I forget his name already, but I did not recognize him at all. But apparently, he's like a badass in one of the cartoon series that I never watched because after a certain age, I didn't watch the cartoons like the Clone Wars and all that kind of stuff.
Clone Wars, yeah.
I didn't watch any of that.
I've heard it's good. I think I saw like some episodes here and there. Like my immediate thought when you said cartoons is like, do you remember the old like the 80s cartoons?
Oh yeah, which ones?
I think they had one for, I think one of them was Droids.
No, I don't.
The Star Wars. Oh man,
I don't think I do.
They had one. It was Droids, and another one that was Ewoks. And I think each of them were maybe only like 2 seasons or something like that. I remember like I had like a VHS tape with like some episodes on it.
No.
And I hadn't thought about it in years. And then, I was like just surfing around on Disney Plus one day, and I was going through all the Star Wars stuff, and I'm like scrolling down to the bottom. I was like, holy shit. Like it's like unlocked a memory, you know what I mean? That I hadn't even considered. And they did like a couple like Ewok movies too, like live action movies.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So I wasn't into it too deep, I guess, because I didn't know that. I didn't know that they had. I don't remember the 80s cartoons, but I mean, we're competing with Thundercats and Voltron and G.I. Joe. And
I don't think they were like super popular, and I don't even remember them that well, but it's just one of those things that I was like, man, like I forgot how much shit there is out there.
Yeah. Star Wars related. God,
oh man.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it could go. You could go on and on about just like the different things, but I guess, what's your favorite movie or part or?
Oh man, it's got to be Empire.
Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
The
first, like the original trilogy. We mentioned before, like they kind of all run together in my mind.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. That one was just, there was so much storyline, and it was all left open, and like that's like the whole that's the the confrontation between Luke and Darth Vader, and and it's just, I don't know, man. Like that one really, like, when I think about Star Wars, I'm like, oh yeah, that's it right there.
One of the things I think about when I think about Star Wars is what would it have been like if they released the movies in sequence instead of starting with the fourth story, A New
Right.
Hope. What if they went the other way and released what's the first one called? I forget.
The Phantom Menace.
The Phantom
Yeah.
Menace. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonder what that.
The story of Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, Georgia. Yeah, and Darth Maul, right?
Yeah.
I just wonder
Yeah. Yeah. I don't
because
know.
they released it in the middle of the story.
Mm-hmm. You know, speaking of that, I did the thing you should never do, and I got myself involved, like wrapped up in an argument on the internet. and I was like, why am I doing this? It's so
Right.
fucking stupid. You know, like
Yeah.
I know better than
Right.
to like
Right,
get,
right.
but it was just one of those things. I did I don't know if you're ever on TikTok.
Yeah.
But they have like a little
Like movie. I see your movie.
yeah,
movie
yeah,
cra- yeah,
the
okay, yeah.
movie versus movie, and
Yeah,
it like
yeah,
puts
okay,
it
I see that.
in
Yeah.
a bracket. And there was one of them that popped up, and it just said Star Wars,
Uh-huh.
and like in the video, I like briefly mentioned, I'm like, which Star Wars movie is it? And like I kind of looked at the poster for a second, and I was like, okay, well that looks like A New Hope, you know.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, well I'm just gonna assume that it's A New Hope, and then some fucking troll decides to comment, what do you mean which Star Wars? And I was like, it didn't say specifically which one. That's why I was questioning it. But, you know, I ultimately decided it was probably A New Hope. It just took me a second. And this person was like, there's only one of them that's just called Star Wars. And they're like, I'm like, no, it's episode 4, A New Hope is the first movie. And they're like, well, how could it be episode 4 if it was the first one?
Yeah.
That wouldn't
So
make
they
any
didn't even
sense.
know.
And I'm like, okay,
You don't
I'm clearly dealing with
know.
somebody who's just like either fucking with me, in which case, like, you know, why did I even get wrapped
Do we need to
up
do like
with
a
troll?
public service announcement and say, hey, people, the very first, what you think is the very first Star Wars is actually the fourth story.
Yeah.
And a combine of what? 9?
Well, see, yeah, there's 9 in that storyline, and that, you know, this kind of I think goes back to like what we were talking about. We've mentioned it before that, like, you know, Star Wars is one of those things that is just kind of ingrained in us. We grew up with it. You kind of just, you're born with sort of the knowledge, and I think that it was one of those too that, like, I don't think I ever would have understood. Well, not ever, but Star Wars definitely, because it was already like the original trilogy was already out when I was obviously little, because, you know, I wasn't born
Right.
until 90. That, like, that helped me understand prequels.
Okay.
I never, I don't think, you know, I mean, like, what else can you think of another like big, like most other like movies that were, you know, a trilogy or, you know, some kind of saga, like they were filmed and released usually in order up until that point.
Yeah. Before that, I couldn't tell you, man.
Yeah, exactly. And it was just one of those things, like, you know, you're just kind of like, you know, I think I remember, like, we probably had like the VHSs in my house or something, and it's probably like, you know, okay, once I understood what Roman numerals were, and it's like, well, this is 4, 5, and 6. Like, why don't we have 1, 2, and 3?
3.
Well, they haven't made those yet.
Right.
You know, and as a kid, you're like, okay, like, I don't understand what you're talking about. I'm just gonna go play with my Legos. But, like, you know, you kind of start thinking about it. Oh, okay, so that's how that works.
Maybe they did that because that's where like the bulk of the story plays out in action, and, you know, because I guess like
Yeah.
the first 3 stories is how, you know, Darth Vader comes around and who Luke
Right.
and Leia really are.
Yeah.
So maybe maybe they did it right, because
No, I think
you don't need all that backstory.
it was perfect the way they did it. Was there a
But I
plan to
wonder-
do 9 from the beginning? Was that the idea?
I don't know, maybe.
Because that would make sense too if you're like, okay, well, we're gonna cast this young actor, Mark Hamill, as the main character, Luke Skywalker, and then when we do those later sequels,
Yeah.
we'll wait until he's older, and then
Yeah.
and then he'll be age appropriate for that character still.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I always thought the original plan was to do 6, and then they were like, oh well, we're not done like telling this story.
I don't know. I wonder too, like how it's affected the generation younger than me because when they were young, that was when the one, two, Phantom Menace. Okay, so what was it? Phantom Menace, Clone Wars, or Attack of the Clones,
Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith.
Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
So was that the generation below us? Is that their moment into Star Wars? And then they were like, oh, because
Maybe.
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like now,
maybe.
then they can go back and watch the old ones, and
Yeah. I don't know.
That'd be weird.
I don't know if I would enjoy it as much if I had like watched them originally in like in chronological order as far as like storyline in that timeline order. I don't know if I would have enjoyed them as much.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you introduce somebody to like the Marvel movies. And like people say like, oh, watch them in timeline order, it'd be fun. And I'm like, yeah, but not for your first viewing. You want to watch them in release date order. Anything that you're starting from, like
the first time through.
Yeah, like I remember, I think I got Amy into the Marvel movies, like at the end of Phase 2 or something, like because she had only seen Guardians of the Galaxy.
Which, by the way, they're coming out with third one. Can't wait.
I'm so fucking excited. I know we're talking about Star
Wars. I
just
watched the first one the other day again.
Dude, that's probably my favorite of all the Marvel movies for sure.
It's got to be up there for me too. Yeah, for sure. I think it is mine too. Yeah. I've seen both of them.
At the girls are into it too.
Yeah.
Jude just requested that the other night, and I they'll tell me which one if they want to watch 1 or 2 by saying Big Groot or Little Groot.
Okay, yeah.
They're like, I want to watch Guardians with the Big Groot. I'm like, okay, so we're watching 1 tonight. But yeah, like imagine not ever seeing Star Wars, any Star Wars, and knowing like what's been released now, like starting with the Phantom Menace, and then moving your way forward. I just don't know that it would grab my attention the way, like starting with
I can see that.
A New Hope, and then going in release date order just makes the most sense to me. I mean, not now, like I could watch any one of them really.
Right.
Maybe not Attack of the Clones. That might be my least favorite.
Really?
I think so. I don't know. I feel like it's a lot of filler.
Yeah, I could see that too.
Yeah. Like, and I've heard Clone Wars, like you mentioned it, the animated series. I've heard that's really good, and that Attack of the Clones was basically just exactly what I said. It was just filler, like leading up to that story.
Mm-hmm.
But then we don't really even get that story in like the film series, so I don't know. No telling.
The dude the David Christensen or whatever his name is that played.
Yeah, Hayden Christensen.
Yeah. He comes back in Mandalorian.
I had heard that.
Yeah.
I've heard.
It was kind of cool.
It's kind of hard to basically go anywhere, and especially on the internet, and not hear about anything Star Wars. Like really, but like Mandalorian's so popular right now. I saw something about like Jack Black and Lizzo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jinjana, whatever his name. God, why am I playing? Anyway, him and Grogu go, and Boca. I forget her name. God, why am I drawing a blank on these? I'm so bad with these names.
And I still haven't watched
anyway,
it, so I can't
the main characters of it, they go to this like luxurious, luscious like planet. Christopher Lloyd's in it.
Oh, is he really?
Christopher Lloyd's, Lloyd. He's like this disgruntled like security dude. I don't want to give too much away.
Yeah.
But yeah,
he's still doing stuff.
Yeah, he was in. I was like, he looks old as dirt, but like
he did 30 years ago.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But yeah, he's in that same episode. But anyway, they play like king and queen of this world.
Okay. Yeah, I saw a lot of like the pictures from it, and I really I liked. Yeah, I just enjoyed like the style of it.
Yeah.
Christopher Lloyd. Yeah, I haven't seen him in. Gosh, I mean, and we'll have to do Back to the Future at some point. I know it's not on
Could
our
just do an
schedule
episode
just
on
yet,
just on
but
him. We could do that. We could do Who Framed Roger Rabbit,
oh man, he's so great in that too. Have
and
you seen
then
the movie Nobody with I can't think of his name right now. Bob Odenkirk, Saul Goodman.
no,
Oh, dude, it's so good. Like just as like a straight up like
we could do an episode just on him.
at Bob Odenkirk.
Yeah,
I love Bob
I do
Odenkirk.
too.
Oh, he's so great. Uh, yeah, like and it's one of those films. It's not really high in like substance. It's just like straight up like it's him. He's like ex-military. He's trying to like live this normal life, and then he gets dragged back into just like being a badass, and it's like pretty much just him going around like fucking people up, like just straight up fucking people
It sounds
up.
like my kind of movie.
And I think it's cast so perfect because Bob Odenkirk is that he's the guy that just looks like an average Joe.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
Just
like the
just a normal guy.
normal dad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
normal dad that you wouldn't expect,
Yeah,
to like have all this like military training and stuff. And that's
Yeah.
basically what the character is. But I mean, we're getting far off.
Yeah.
The,
Anyway, back to Star Wars.
yeah. Well, and again, I mean, that's kind of why we're talking about Star Wars, because you start with Star Wars and it could just branch off into so many. It's so prevalent
Right.
in all of pop
Yeah.
culture.
I mean, God, Harrison Ford went on to do Indiana Jones, and he was in Regarding Henry.
Yeah.
Was that the one where he like was shot and
Yeah.
he like had amnesia and all that? Anyway, that was kind of a good movie, honestly.
I like Harrison Ford.
The Fugitive.
Yeah, Fugitive.
What else? Go ahead.
I mean, what else is Harrison Ford been in?
Yeah, there's some else Harrison Ford.
So many things. One of my favorite appearances of him was you ever see the movie Bruno?
Yes.
I did not like that movie, by the way. I like Sacha Baron Cohen. I think he's funny. There were parts of that movie that were entertaining. But I think I laughed the hardest when he like submitted that it was like a video he made that was like supposed to be an episode of his show, and it's like this variety, and he's like doing this and that, and he's like building up to this like big interview with Harrison Ford, and he's like, now it's time, and it was just him, like Harrison Ford coming out of a building, and he's just like, I'm here with Harrison Ford. He's like, fuck off. And he just walks away. Like, I laughed so hard because I didn't expect to actually see Harrison Ford.
Yeah, you're right. So I guess. So one of the things, okay, I want to talk. Star Wars comes out. Have you ever seen the movie Fargo or Argo?
Argo, yeah, the
Ben
Affleck.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
They were doing like a spin-off science fiction movie. I wonder if they did that because of the success of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like they're like, oh my God, look at Star Wars. It's making, it's like huge, and everybody wants these sci-fi movies. I'd have to get the time frame on it, but I just thought of something like that. But I don't know. When I was a kid, we had the action figures, Star Wars action figures.
Oh yeah.
And we had some of the the other toys, like the Death Star. I think wasn't that like a toy? I think I remember having a Death Star.
Oh yeah. I mean, dude, anything you could want. I had it was a battery powered, like, you remember those memory games?
Like Simon Says kind of thing?
Kind of, yeah. And it was like but the memory was like where you have like so there's like a actual like tangible like memory game with like cards where like you flip them over and you flip one, you flip another, and you're trying to match two, and if you don't
Okay, yeah.
match them, you flip them back over. But I had one that it was Star Wars themed. It looked like the Millennium Falcon,
Okay.
and it had these buttons, and it would like randomize, and then you have to like press the buttons. You have to press two, and you gotta like try to match two of them. You gotta light up the whole board.
Okay.
I don't know whatever happened to it, but I used to play that thing all the fucking time.
Yeah.
All the time.
I think, so I was born in 82. When did the first one came out in like 80 or 79 or 80, wasn't it?
70, I believe it was 77.
77?
Yeah. I could always go to my notes for the so you're talking about A New Hope, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see.
So then when did The Empire Strikes Back?
I think that was 80.
And then Return of the Jedi was 82?
I mean, I could be wrong.
I think Return of the Jedi was 82.
So, yeah, so A New Hope was 1977.
Okay.
And I think you're right. As far as, yeah, so Empire Strikes Back was 1980. And Return of the Jedi was 83.
83.
Yeah.
So by the time I was old enough to like really remember stuff, it had already ran its course in a sense that it wasn't really being pushed down kids' throats at that time, maybe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it was still around and you could still get the toys, but it wasn't my earliest remember being into like something like that was like He-Man.
Okay.
And Thundercats. Right around that time. So like I didn't have a whole lot of like the Star Wars toy, like a whole lot. Like I remember some, and you could find some here and there. But
I had some, and I mean, I keep saying this. I'm a broken record about it by now, but like, again, I mean, this is the whole reason that we're doing this. Like, I remember when I was a kid, like I think it was Taco Bell had like Star Wars toys for their kids' meals. And we're talking like mid 90s. So this is like 10, 15 years after, like the trilogy was done.
Yeah.
And before anybody even knew anything about like the release of
Phantom Menace and all
Phantom Menace. So it just goes to kind of show you like what, like you don't see that a lot in, as far as like, okay, well, we're still going to market the hell out of this franchise, even if there's nothing right now to like promote.
Right.
It's just the fact that like we know we can push it.
You know what I find interesting? The only other one that I could put up there with like Star Wars as far as like marketing and like kids and all that, Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And is it because it's just one of those epic stories where, you've got 9 or 10 movies where you're making $1 billion in profit each one.
Right.
Like,
do you ever see that I forget the name of the comedian, but there was a video going around where there's this comedian, he's talking about how Harry Potter is just Star Wars.
No, but I could kind of.
Yeah, it was like we've got this hero who like loses his parents at a young age and then goes to live with the aunt and uncle who kind of mistreat him.
Yeah,
and then one day this homeless looking guy shows up and tells him he's special. And he's got magic powers. And then he has to go off to like, somewhere to learn how to use these powers, where he meets a girl who he's kind of into, but finds out it's like kind of like his sister. And then, she's really into like the scruffy comic relief.
And his friend.
Yeah. So it was just like, I was like, oh my God, dude, that's spot on.
Yeah. It's kind of like that in Avatar and Dances with Wolves, or, all that other stuff.
Yeah, Dances with
But that was one of the things, that was what I was going to bring up. It's like, you didn't see that with Avatar. At least I didn't see with Avatar. You don't see a lot of Avatar toys or different merchandising and stuff, like.
No.
So what I'm saying is, with like, let's get back to the epic, in the most refined sense of the word. Okay,
Yeah.
we go back and we let's go back, and because you said that name another franchise, name another movie or something that was released at like the fourth story, or that had
Yeah.
9.
Yeah.
I can't think of any, and it's almost like Star Wars broke that mold
Mhm. Yeah,
for
you're
the
you're talking about before that, right?
before Star
Or even
Wars.
since.
Before Star, well, no, since I can name like Harry Potter,
Yeah.
and it looks like the Avatar series, maybe.
Yeah.
What I'm getting at
Lord of the
is,
Rings.
okay, Lord of the so there's another one,
Yeah.
where these epic stories that are, what I'm getting at is before Star Wars. Star Wars is like the one that broke the mold
Oh yeah.
and was like, you can take these epic stories that are like 9 films deep and make a buku bucks if you're willing to invest that kind of money and take. So you've got Harry Potter after that. Okay, so start Star Wars.
Yeah.
Okay, after the Star Wars, name the next 3 movie series that you can think of that made a bunch of money.
After Star Wars?
Yeah,
Um,
was it
Back to the Future?
okay? So Back to the
Yeah.
yep, Back to the Future. Yep, 3 movies long at least.
Yeah. I would lump that into
Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park. Yeah. Again,
What I'm getting at is Star Wars breaks that stereotypical where you
Yeah.
just release these one big epic movies and
Yeah,
they put out,
that's true. That's true.
and then you see them and go ahead.
Yeah. No, I mean, even Lucas and Spielberg and guys like that weren't doing that before.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right.
And then the effect that it has on pop culture in general. When we talk about pop culture in this, all pop culture in this episode. So what I'm saying is, how much more impact can a story or a franchise be on pop culture and the way we kind of view things than Star Wars, in the sense that it gave birth to all of these epic stories afterwards that
Oh
studios
yeah.
could always look back and say, yeah, it's a $1 billion investment and it's 4, 5, 6 movies long.
Yeah.
Is it worth it? Well, there was this guy named George Lucas,
Right.
What
a master storyteller. Yeah, and it's funny because everything that you brought up, I was just thinking in my mind like Spielberg, Lucas, I'd maybe even lump like Zemeckis in there.
Yeah.
There's something about those movies, those stories, like we're talking about Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park, Back to the Future, E.T. Well, like you look at those movies, they're rated. They're like all rated PG.
Yeah.
Maybe not Jurassic Park, but even so, like it's something. Any of those movies I could show my kids right now. They're 2 and 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's nothing about them that kids wouldn't enjoy, and there's nothing about them that adults wouldn't enjoy.
Yeah.
It's something that you've never grown out of. We talked about like the Harry Potter movies, and I think I'd put those in there too. But we talked about the first one when it was released, and you were what, 17?
Harry Potter?
Yeah.
16, 17.
Yeah, and you were like, I'm too cool for that shit. You know what I mean? But everything that I've mentioned there was never a point where you go from, I'm a kid and I love Star Wars. You don't grow into that like that adolescent like
That's a good point. I'm a teenager.
I'm a teenager and I don't care
I
about
don't care
that
about
anymore.
Star Wars anymore.
Yeah, I mean,
That's true.
dude. Like,
Because even when I was a teenager, I was like, Star Wars is pretty
fuck
cool.
yeah, dude. And we grew up on it. We loved it as kids. I remember like in high school, hanging out with my buddies and like, just my house was kind of like the party house, and you've been to that house. My parents.
It's funny. My house was a party house too.
Yeah, but it's the same. same house we used to have all the Halloween parties in.
Yeah.
So we had the pool table,
Yeah.
foosball table. It was we had entertainment galore, and then like I remember the end of the night, like we'd be sitting around, and we're just like, let's put on a movie or something, and like, dude, I
Fucking
mean,
Star Wars, man.
Star Wars was was one that was always at least mentioned.
Yeah.
You'd
be like, you want to watch New Hope, but I'd be like, yeah. So I know you would want to be watching New Hope, but I would be arguing for Return of the Jedi because that's my favorite.
Yeah. Empire is mine.
Empire's yours?
Empire's mine.
Yeah.
New Hope's always good too. It's one of those, like, if I'm gonna watch it, if I'm gonna watch like the series, like obviously I'm gonna start from the beginning. I can't tell you how many times I've done that with like Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah, I did that with Lord of the Rings, and then I've recently done it with The Hobbit. I like The Hobbit. God, one of my favorite characters is Radagast, the Brown.
Oh yeah,
he's like one of my favorite dudes. Yeah.
Would you be a wizard if you were in the Middle Earth lore? Where do you think you'd fit
what are my choices? A wizard, a hobbit,
a wizard, hobbit,
a human, or like a knight?
Dwarf, elf, human, I guess goblin, orc.
What do I see myself as? I guess I see myself as maybe
maybe a wizard, maybe a dwarf. Maybe a kick-ass dwarf.
Okay, yes. Yeah. Okay, I can see myself. Okay, yeah, that's more fitting to what I
like. Who's the main dwarf in the Hobbit? Can't remember his name.
They're a bunch of dwarves.
Yeah, but like the main guy, like the badass guy.
He returns to the mountain.
Yeah. Like, I can see that in you. I don't know. I don't see myself as anything other than a wizard. Like a gray. Matthias the Gray. Matthias the Gray.
There you go.
I don't know. Just like, like there's something about like when Gandalf comes back as the white, like he's cool.
Yeah.
I know he's more powerful, but it's like, I don't know, man. I miss the pot smoking grandpa.
Yeah, right. Not
but that and there again, I mean, that's kind of another story that goes along with.
Yeah, they released in the middle, and then they brought the prequels out afterwards.
Yeah. But then there's a similar like storyline to that too. When you think of these characters like Gandalf the Grey and like Rubius Hagrid and like they all kind of like fit that Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
The
like wise.
The mentor,
the guide.
Like,
that's interesting.
I think the only one, like, I think, going with the theme of like, Gandalf, like, I guess dies, but is it like resurrected?
He's not really dead.
It's like
his ghost comes back and he's in game.
It's kind of weird. But then like,
why couldn't he come? Why did he have to come back as Gandalf the White? Why couldn't he come back as Gandalf the Black? like, dude, you just died. Yeah. If you came back as Black, I think I would totally get it. That doesn't necessarily mean you're bad.
Don't they explain the like hierarchy of the wizards in The Hobbit? I don't know if they do it in the films, but I think in the book.
So I haven't read the books.
I think in the book, Gandalf kind of like goes a little more into depth, and he's like talking about how there's only one white, and that was
did he die? Did he become? Oh, okay.
There was only one gray. There's only like a handful. I think there's only 5 wizards because there's Saruman the white, Gandalf the gray, Radagast the brown, and then there's 2 blues.
There's not a green.
I think he says blue. I think he says there's 2 blues. And but I think like the hierarchy is like it goes in that order, like white's.
So Saruman died, I guess, right? That's how he became the white?
No, he was still alive. It was something about like it's all about like a power thing. I don't know. I don't really remember. It's like the brown is like the lowest tier. It goes brown, blue, gray, and then white. Yeah. Huh. That's why Radagast is kind of like
earthy and like kind of like weird and
kind of goofy and like kind of like I think even Bilbo's like he's like no.
I don't know why. This is my favorite one. I don't know, like that.
Yeah.
Like
bird shit in his hair.
Yeah, okay, but like there's
like
just something about
I like
it.
him.
I don't know.
I like him.
He was tuned to Mother Nature or some shit. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know
right.
what it was, but I was like, he's my favorite wizard in that. Anyway,
Yeah.
talking about wizards.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
This motherfucker lives in like a fucking cave, right?
Yeah.
Badass, like Jedi,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And then all of a sudden, this dude, his nemesis, his protege's child shows up and was like, "Are you my
Mm-hmm.
daddy?"
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, like, and he's like, "Yes, my child. I shall show you
Yeah.
the way so that you can defeat your father and do what I couldn't do," kind of thing. I don't.
Yeah.
Interesting archetype there, right? Like,
I think so.
you
I
know,
I think so, and it's one of those. I think it took me like years to like really understand, like, why did he have to die? You know, like I was so like, what? I don't get it.
you have to. It's like Game of Thrones
Yeah, it was just
stories.
one of those. I think it was one of those kind of like he knew that was how this.
He knew how it was going to end. Yeah,
Yeah, but I don't know. You know,
the artist destroyed by his creator, kind of thing. You
right?
know,
Who?
or his creation. That's what I
Yeah,
meant.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
How do you feel about Ewan McGregor as the young Obi-Wan Kenobi?
you know, I forget the first actor's name, but you know, he had that accent. He had that British accent, so I
Yeah.
think he had to have had a British
Alec
accent.
Alec Guinness.
Guinness, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
I liked him, but I like Ewan McGregor.
I fucking dude. He's like you ever just look at somebody like a guy like that and you just see him like acting on screen. You're like, God, like I sometimes I wish I was gay.
No,
Like
no, not that I wish I was gay, but sometimes I'm like, it would so be fucking cool to be him.
Oh my god, dude!
You
Like
know, like
he's just one of those. Like I don't know, man. Like if he walked into this house right now and was like, just plant one on me, I'd be like, hey, fuck, I'm kissing you and McGregor. Like there's no way
yeah,
I'm not.
yeah,
There's
and I'm
no way
never washing my
not.
mouth out again.
He's
Yeah,
just so good, and you know. And I've read interviews with people who have worked with him
yeah,
and met him, and they're like, he's so fucking charming. Like just so like exactly what you expect him to be.
yeah,
Like that's it.
yeah,
And I love hearing those stories when it's like because we have this idea of how people are just based on what we see from them, you know,
yeah.
on screen, and you never know if it's true or not.
You know, for me, I always knew him as the dude from fucking Train Spotting, man.
Oh my god, yeah,
You know,
yeah. No,
so when he
that's a good
became
point.
Obi-Wan Kenobi, I was like, dude, okay,
Yeah.
like I could down with that.
Well, I mean, and
I'm
again,
not a huge fan of his, but like I liked the movie Train Spotting was fucked up. We talked about that the other
yeah, we
night.
did talk about that.
Uh,
That yeah, but and you know now that we're kind of thinking about all these other like fantasy and sci-fi sagas, yeah, you kind of like Harry Potter's another one of those where like Alan Rickman, you know, I was like that's Hans Gruber, you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
and now he's a fucking wizard, you know, like
yeah,
it was weird. I also like mostly associated him with the voice of God from Dogma.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, which
yeah.
is great.
Um,
Speaking of Kevin Smith, like I don't think Kevin Smith has made one single film without making a Star Wars reference.
oh, I'm sure. Yeah, good point.
Yeah. I mean
Yeah,
that's another thing about Star Wars is like how it bleeds over
into
into
other
yeah,
movies, other stories.
you know, like there's so many references
Yeah,
in everything, you know, like I said, pretty much anything that he's done. You ever see Zach and Miri make a porno?
I have.
Yeah. Where they're like trying to decide like what are we gonna do? What's our theme? And they're like Star Wars, you know.
Yeah.
And that was also in the 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Yeah.
when Steve Carell, like, they give him that big box of porn because they're like trying to get, and that
Yeah.
was one of the movies.
I like French toast.
Yeah, that was one of the movies that he watched was
That's
Star
right.
Wars. He was trying to get into it, like get into the whole.
God, that was such a
sexualizing-
good movie, man.
Yeah.
I like French toast.
She's fucking hilarious.
I like her. Yeah.
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 Yeah, dude. I don't know. And then like, how many songs like did Weird Al do about,
man.
or just anything in general? I mean, like, there's just so many references because it's just one of those things that, again, like, everybody knows, everybody's gonna get it. You ever seen the movie Fanboys?
No.
Fanboys is really good. We're gonna have to do that. We'll have to cover that.
Okay.
So the story is it's set in like 99 or 2000, whenever the Phantom Menace came out, like it was about to come out, and it's this group of friends that are like huge fucking like Star Wars nerds. And it's great because it's all like late 90s themes, like they're playing like N64 and shit like that.
Yeah.
But like one of their friends gets diagnosed with like cancer, and they're like, you can't die before episode 1 comes out, like you need so they go on this, like they're like, we're gonna go on this quest to take him to Lucas Ranch,
which I heard is awesome,
because they heard that there was like he had like a copy that was already done because it was like still in editing. So like we're gonna break into Lucas Ranch and we're gonna steal this reel.
Wait, this sounds, what is this now?
Fanboys.
This sounds really familiar, man.
It's really good.
I think I might have seen this now,
probably,
because they do break in and they actually get to show the movie to George Lucas.
They show like, spoiler if anybody hasn't seen it, but so they agree to, like, Danny McBride plays one of the guards at Lucas Ranch. Dude, it's hilarious. There's so many people in it.
That does sound very familiar.
They agree to let the one guy who's like dying, they agree to let him like come in and watch it, because everybody else is obviously going to see it when it premieres.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, there's so many people, like Seth Rogen's in it. Jay and Silent Bob make an appearance. Speaking of Kevin Smith, like it's really good. We're again, it's something that we'll probably cover.
Huh.
Yeah.
Family Guy did a whole like episode, 45-minute long episode.
Yeah, again,
Blue Harvest.
Yeah.
And I think they had a second one. I think we referenced it in the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Just that in itself. In the commentary for Blue Harvest, Seth MacFarlane, he went out and talked to George Lucas. And there were parts where Seth MacFarlane is like, I was afraid that he was going to get like upset. Like in the part where they're in the Millennium Falcon and Luke shoots a TIE fighter. And he's like, I got one. And Harrison Ford was like, don't get cocky, kid.
Yeah. Don't get cocky, kid.
Well, in the Blue Harvest scene,
yeah,
Peter says, don't get all penisy. and Seth MacFarlane is like, I don't know. And he knew it was coming up. And it's like, is this going to be okay? And he said, George Lucas let out this like huge like laugh. Said it was an awesome experience.
And how could you not? That's funny.
Yeah. But since, I don't know, I mean, you post Star Wars,
mm-hmm.
you can see all these different franchises that are gambling on these multi
oh yeah,
films, that are,
well, Robot Chicken did like a couple
they're constantly referring.
Well, they do a lot of like one-off skits. I mean, that's all they do.
Mm-hmm.
Like mixed into their like regular episodes, but didn't they do at least one like all Star Wars episode?
I think they did, yeah.
If not a couple, I think they had a couple.
Yeah, I think
where it was just like all like Star Wars skits.
Yeah.
So many. There's just so much out there, man. Even even Chappelle's Show did like a skit about Star Wars. It was like a news. It was like a news thing. I don't know. God, I wish I could remember what it was, but it was Dave Chappelle playing Mace Windu.
Huh.
Yeah, and they're like interviewing him, and I think it was like something about like inequality and the.
Okay, so I'm gonna challenge you
Uh
on during the recording.
huh. Okay.
You have to watch the first episode of Mandalorian.
Oh God, dude, I need to. I need to.
That's your challenge before next week,
Okay, that's fair,
because we could dedicate a whole episode on just the Mandalorian.
and probably should.
I really think we should, because it's
Yeah.
really prevalent in pop culture right now.
I'm behind on a lot of Star Wars right now.
And
to
the
be
beauty of
honest.
it is they're only like 30 minutes, 40 minutes long,
That's
something like
good.
that. So they're
That's
not
good.
like a full hour.
That's very good.
Yeah.
I still I wanted to watch Solo.
Yeah,
I didn't get into that either.
I haven't. I didn't either. I think the last Star Wars movie I watched was Rogue One.
Dude,
Yeah.
how good was Rogue One?
It was really good.
It was so good. I went into that not even knowing what it was,
Yeah.
really. Like I hadn't seen any trailers or anything for it, and then somebody that I know had an extra ticket, and he was like, "Hey, you want to go? I'm going with some friends, and I was supposed to bring somebody, and they flaked. It was kind of last minute, you know." He's like, "You want to go tonight?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" So I went. You know, I rolled up in there, and I'm sitting there like. I mean, it's Star Wars. Like, I'm not gonna not enjoy it. I knew I
Yeah,
was,
yeah.
but I just really didn't know like what even the story was. And I was like, oh, okay, I like this. You know, like as I'm
Yeah.
watching it, and then Vader shows up, and I was like, dude, I did not even fucking know this was gonna happen. Like this is crazy. Like I was loving it. I think going into it, not knowing what to expect, like made me enjoy it so much more
Yeah.
because I was just like, just kind of blown away by the whole story. You know, it was just one of those things. It's like. And I personally never thought about it. I never thought about, you know, like how many times have I watched a New Hope and they're like, you know, oh, we're missing the plans for the Death Star, and you know, I never thought about, oh, well, who took them? What's that story? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
never once
It's-
that I think like, hey, I really want to see that.
should pay attention to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then they made a whole movie about it, and I was like, oh, that was the backstory that I didn't know I wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's very appropriate that we're talking about this topic. You can't discuss anything pop culture without talking about Star Wars.
Yeah.
You really can't.
That's kind of why we kicked everything off with
Yeah,
the Star Wars.
Yeah. So, you know, I think what's interesting is what does the future hold for Star Wars?
Oh,
What's
yeah.
the next thing? We were talking about, you lightly mentioned like a video game maybe earlier. It got me thinking about some video games. One of the best video games I think I ever played was on the GameCube. You remember the Nintendo GameCube?
Yeah, yeah.
They had a Star Wars game on there. I loved it. Oh my god, it was so cool. You'd fly an X-wing or a TIE fighter and all that. Graphics were, crap.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't know. It was a really, so there's so many other video games out there too. Like I had one on PC. Don't remember what it's called. But then they've got some of these new video games out that are pretty good. Like Star Wars, was it Battlefront? I think was one that was really big, really popular. You could start out. It was like first person shooter, like team deathmatch or something.
Yeah.
And you could start out and play any character you wanted with any weapon. You could pick different weapons and stuff. Chewbacca's crossbow was one of the most powerful weapons in one of the games I remember playing. But yeah, just the lore and some of the video games that include like the vehicles and stuff.
Yeah.
Those are my favorite.
I had it was the Clone Wars, but it wasn't based off the series. It was released like when they released Attack of the Clones.
Okay.
So it was like based off the movies. Like there's like a level like, or at least like a couple levels where you play as Mace Windu, and it is like, I mean, it's modeled after Samuel L. Jackson, not like the cartoon character, which was also modeled after him, but like, it wasn't cartoony like that. The graphics were a little more. I enjoyed it. Apparently it was like one of the shitty ones. Like people would be like, "Oh, like you mentioned Battlefront. Battlefront was the one everybody was like raving about, but I didn't have a lot of money, so
Right.
I bought the cheap one. It was
Yeah.
Clone Wars, but I enjoyed it. It was a fun game.
Yeah. So I think that could be a whole other topic in itself. It's just like the progression of the video games as technology advanced, because Star Wars has stayed so prevalent in pop culture that every 2-3 years are coming out with a new Star Wars. Technology is advanced, and
Do you think now I know that they've had some like straight to TV or straight to like DVD like Lego Star Wars stuff, like movies. Um but like do you think Warner Brothers will ever like get together with Disney or whatever and make like a cuz they did like the Lego movie and then they did the Lego Batman movie which was actually good.
it was good. So
And
are you
make like
asking
a
that they
big
do a Lego Star Wars Lego movie?
yeah, but make it like a big like theatrical production. I feel like it's got to happen at some point, right?
At some point you think it would. I mean, bring these two together. It's like Marvel and DC. It's
Yeah.
like Warner Brothers and Disney.
Yeah.
Okay, so look at Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Mhm.
Like there were some ridiculous ass rules when they made that when they made Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Oh yeah.
Like Mickey Mouse couldn't, or Donald Duck couldn't be on screen longer than Daffy Duck.
Yeah.
Just some stupid shit. It's like,
Yeah.
come on, man. Y'all, if you all just imagine what they could do if they cooperated.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Imagine what they could
Oh,
do
dude.
if like if Marvel and DC like fully cooperated.
I wouldn't. I don't think I would like a reboot necessarily, but even after all these years, they could always make a sequel and like with all the all the like characters that they could use now and the way that like CGI and animation works and everything now, like to see like another like Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, I like I said, I don't think I'd like to see it.
A revamped Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but like something along that lines where like
like you could always make it. I mean, dude, how many and honestly, like I kind of get tired of all these sequels and reboots, but if we're gonna continue that trend, like that's something I'd love to see.
Don't you think like the people need to see some kind of unity?
Oh yeah,
like
that's
like a Star Wars Star Trek crossover.
Oh god, dude.
I'm just throwing that up there. Or a Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah,
anything. Like just there's so much division in the world right now. If we could just have some of our entertainment where you got competitors like come together and lead by example, and
that was one of the things that was so great about watching Ready Player One.
Right.
All of this stuff that like all these things that were on the same screen that I didn't expect to see.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Warner, and I mentioned this too, I think in the episode where we talked about Ready Player One, but like Warner Brothers has been doing that a lot lately.
Reaching out and like cooperating with other studios and stuff.
I don't know. Not necessarily other studios, but definitely bringing a lot of like their own, like, the Lego Batman movie, when they bring in all the like the villains across like the, their, they had, Voldemort and
okay,
and it was just kind of like, oh, okay, like the raptors from Jurassic Park, and
you know what I mean, because like at the end of the day, especially those movies, kids don't care that one's Warner Brothers and one's whatever, right? They don't care. All they know is they got a Voldemort and they got a Lego Batman, and they're gonna fucking duke it out, and guess who's gonna win?
Yeah. Well, and how much money are you gonna like? Is each studio gonna make off of that?
Right.
If that's what it's all about at the end of the day, it's like, dude, just do it.
Right.
I don't know.
Anyway, well, believe it or not, Matt, we are getting ready to come up on the 1 hour mark on this episode. So
that makes sense.
Let's see if you got any more to add. I think we're gonna call it on the Star Wars episode. Even we really talk. I mean, I guess we did talk a lot about Star Wars, but
yeah,
you can't help but not talk about all this other stuff because it's impacted in many ways small, but like very profound.
Oh yeah.
And then other ways immensely, and we could just go down that one tunnel, that one
Yeah.
rabbit hole of that topic. But anyway,
And that's what's so great about it.
yeah, who knows what the future holds for Star Wars episode. That's my thing too. It's like,
Yeah.
what's in the next 5-10 years for that?
Oh yeah.
You know,
And there's so much potential.
what if like aliens came down and said, we would like to speak to the one that you call Han Solo. We must take his body back in carbonite.
Right.
Like, I don't know. He is the manliest man out of all you humans. Anyway.
Oh,
All right. You guys, thank you for hanging in there with us on this very special bonus episode. We got some more stuff coming up, so hang in there. Thanks for your patronage, and we'll talk to you soon.